CEOs must show up with the people, must visit the customers, must work with the partners. Sitting in the office will not do it.
So I'm so excited to be here. I have the privilege of spending this time with Dr. Ram Charan, management guru, who I've invited into the SHRM world to talk to us about, one, his new book, but secondly, the topic that's on everyone's mind, the recession. If you have a 401k, I jokingly refer to it as a 201k right now because it's been sliced, right? That as human beings, as Americans, as workers, we have to think about how all of this inflation, recession, all of this stuff is impacting us. But we need to understand it first. So in this segment, we're going to talk to the C-suite. Specifically, we do a lot of talking to CEOs and CFOs about numbers, but also the CHRO and HR professionals. Like, we are all hearing about the weekly layoffs and hiring freezes and everything that's going on. I'd like you to kind of take us through this, because it is important to remember most of us have never lived through a real economic downturn. Even if you go back to 2008, if you're under 40 years old, you were not an adult. You definitely weren't managing people if you're under 40 years old.
Yeah.
And even if you're 40 to 50, you weren't around back in 1982 when it really was ugly, right? 21% interest rate, gas prices, et cetera. So help me help my colleagues, not just in HR, but generally in the C-suite, but specifically HR professionals, to understand, how do you cope under these circumstances? What are the things we need to focus on?
Yeah. So I went through the time when the interest rates were 21%.
Right.
I was 43 years of age, really in the prime of my life.
Right.
So HR, I'm allowed to work with HR people across the globe. Number one, what matters is people. Resoluteness, resilience. How do we do that? One, give them facts, communicate facts. Take the garbage out. You're going to get a ton of garbage that scares people. Don't use the word recession, use the word downturn. Show them human beings have experienced enormous adversity in life. We all come through.
Can we talk about that just a second? I hate to interact, and I know you got 2 or 3 other subjects to talk about, but we've spent the last couple of years talking about psychological safety. We talk about giving our employees a safe space. So in many ways, we don't want to tell employees what's on the horizon because we want them to feel safe. How do you react to that?
Yeah, preparedness. That we're going to have the downturn longer, not shorter. And then we suggest to them what they need to do. And we create a methodology in the company where people have those cash problems, living problems, making paycheck to paycheck problem. How do we help them?
Yes.
How do they avoid the fear that am I going to be laid off? These things will come, and communicate reality and facts. Number 2, learn, ask, insist with your CFO. What is the cash flow forecast quarter by quarter for the next 8 quarters?
Yes.
And number 3 is sort out the garbage that's coming in the press and assure people and get your CEO to go to the floor, go to where the people are and inspire them, give them courage. We know he's going to downsize. Downsizing will come. Deal with human sensitivity. Because if you don't do the downsize and downturn, you will lose all of them. There will be the second item that the CEOs, CFOs, CXOs, HROs, they should at the same time prepare for the silver lining, because the world is changing every moment. New opportunities are coming, and therefore they do both, coping with downturn and building for the future. You will need people to do that.
So let's talk about this, because you raise a really interesting point. We hear of companies that deliver amazing quarterly reports and then the next day announce layoffs. When that sends a really confusing message to employees. We're saying we're doing well and we're going to pay bonuses and all of that, but we're cutting costs. Talk to me about the preemptive layoff.
The first part for any leader is not to lose credibility.
Yes.
Number 2, second part of any great leader is to lay out the reality. Number three, tell the facts. So if you are getting incredible results of the past, the future is going to be downturn, laid out. That we don't compare against the past.
Right.
We compare what we see, the external demand reality, and therefore what our size will be. Against that, how are we doing? Winning against a new reality
Yes.
will create morale. Do that. Now, the skill of the top is communication. Communicate the burning platform, communicate the reality. In the reality, it will be adversity, but human beings can keep dignity, they can keep a morale to win against the adversity, not against the great times of the past.
So, Ram, you've consulted the world's leading CEOs. You've advised them through
I do.
cycles. So you say at 80 plus years old, you've seen all of them, all of the greats, the names. What are you hearing right now on the ground? Some of the senses, and I can tell you as a CEO, the perception is, we know everything. More importantly, that we're not afraid of anything. That's not so. Can you talk about what's their sense of urgency, the anxiety that sits in the CEO office right now?
The CEOs have to change their time allocation.
Okay.
They have to change their mindset from earnings per share to cash per share. They have to change their mindset that we're going to manage for cash,
Yes.
manage to clean up the attics, manage to have a better fighting fit, smaller company,
Yes.
and better relation with the customers we keep, and better talent, people, and preserve that talent and grow it.
Okay.
Being a smaller, better fight fit, building the future for silver lining is the new CEO. There are some companies that are facing very big downturns right now. We saw in the case of FedEx, that is confronting the new reality.
Yep.
They are doing it well. So these are the things the CEOs, and by the way, CEOs must show up with the people,
Yes.
must visit the customers, must work with the partners, because sitting in the office will not do it.
No, I think that's right. So before we transition to the next segment, I have a fundamental question. I'd like you to tell us a story, right? And a story about how successful CEO 2020, 2021, 2022 came out of this on the other side of the pandemic, a hero, big Superman S on. But now that person wakes up every day and has to confront the reality that prices are going to go up. We're going to have to lay off employees, et cetera. What should that CEO be thinking right now? Because it's scary.
CEO, first and foremost, he or she is the leader of people,
Yes.
number one.
That's number one.
So this person has to do two things at the same time. One is to know the customer behavior change.
Yes.
Tim Cook in Apple,
Yeah.
after cleaning up in the morning, he spends an hour to get the customer data and reviews it for 20 countries.
Yes.
And number two, she must go to the lowest level employees, mix in them, talk to them, learn what's their psychology, because they are the ones who come in contact with the customer. Keep that vibrant, even though you will be smaller, even though there will be hardships.
So it's interesting as we wrap this up, you're talking about two customers, the external customer, understanding insights, information, how that person's thinking, what will they pay for things. You talk about, Apple's CEO, they rolled out a new phone, but there were no price increases this time. So I want to talk about that because there are implications to, normally you see some price increase coming out of Apple, you didn't this time. But you also are talking about the other customer, the internal customer, the employee. And
Yes.
you're saying the CEO has to talk to both of their customer communities.
Go to the lowest level who interface with the customers without filters in between.
Nice.
If you have 6 layers, 7 layers, information will be distorted.
Yes.
You go like the sun's rays strikes the earth without any blockages. That's information flow is mandatory.
Got it. So I'm going to ask you one, and I know this will be hard for you because we speak in terms of three, but one key takeaway CEOs should have from all of the advice that you've offered, like the number one thing.
It's a simple thing. Your communications must reach to the bottom.
Yes.
And customers without filter. Simple, clear, credible, and honest. And it has to be both ways. If you're not doing it, you are not a great leader.
Thank you, Dr. Ram Charan.